Hi, and welcome to Beyond Sunday. I'm Brandon Walters. I'm here with James and Leah King from Unity Church of Greenville. And today, I want to talk about something a little more, let's say, serious. It's all serious, but this is a little deeper. Because we've had some incidents in the last week. One in Brussels with the attack in Brussels, and a lot of innocent people died. And then locally, we had an officer, a young officer with a young family who was killed in the line of duty. Yeah. And a lot of outpouring from the community. But I know that a lot of people probably have the same question, and it has to do with, if how does a good God let stuff like this happen? And either one of you can go first.
Well, it is, it's really not about God doing this. It is about human beings. It's about humanity. It's about the way that we treat each other. It's about our immaturity in this world, that we treat each other in such very low ways. And so I think that the emotional, spiritual immaturity is the problem. We don't know who we are. We've forgotten our true identity, which is that we are spirit and that we are co-creators with divinity. And so God does not go around, just making everything happen or not happen. That would we would just be controlled. We'd just be puppets. We're not puppets. We have free will. And because we have free will, we can make choices. And so the key is to learn to make good choices. And so right now there seems to be a lot of people in the world who are making choices that are based very strongly in fear. And so there's a lot of fear in the world. And I think that's the biggest problem is our fear. Does that make sense?
Oh, absolutely. Want to add anything?
Yeah, with regards to the Brussels incident, I know we were talking the other day, there was a book out here a few years back, Why Do Bad Things Happen to Good People? And we were talking about the fact, bad things happen to good people, bad things happen to bad people too. And the Bible says that it rains on the just and the unjust. And when you live in this physical world, Jesus said, you will have tribulation. You're going to encounter things that aren't pleasant, that don't look right. I think when it comes down to, when you're talking about Brussels, you're talking about the terrorist issue. And for me, I want to know what's missing from the young men and women who are involved in this. What's missing from their lives that they feel drawn to that activity? What's missing on a heart level? What's, and it's the same with the young officer who died here in town. I guess that was gang related. What's missing in this young man's life that he has to ally himself with a gang? And there's something there. There's some sense of needing to belong, of needing to be connected to something. And apparently, these kinds of groups fill that. So, I guess my question would be in the whole thing is how can we step in and recognize when people are hurting and feeling disconnected from both their community and their God, and play a role in helping to facilitate, the closing of that gap.
Well, it's interesting when I think about that. I do feel like there's a huge jump happening right now in a movement, mass consciousness, in terms of mass consciousness, to a much more enlightened humanity. I mean, when you look around, you see a lot of good happening in different levels.
Sure.
Excuse me, but I also see the bad stuff, and people who aren't moving that direction. It seems to be getting more exponential, like just more violent or bigger. Not wider ranging, but the events themselves seem to be bigger.
We've said before that things are getting so obviously polarized that you can't look at a situation anymore and not know. There's like no gray area. Well, it's obviously dark or light.
It feels like that. It's almost like there's the battle of good and evil, and it's kind of in the heart of it right now, and that's why it looks that way. I don't mean it. That's
I know
very
what you-
general.
Sure, sure.
But it's almost like the tipping point is we're right near it or whatever, and the bad doesn't want to go out lightly, kind of thing. It's what it seems like, and so it just gets magnified. Does that make any sense?
Absolutely. In the scriptures, it says that everything that you have done in secret will be shouted from the housetops. And so there's a principle there that everything that is done in darkness is being brought to the light. So everything is being brought out so that we can see it for what it really is. It's like, I would not want to be a politician today because, everything that you have done, all of your skeletons will be brought out, and will be revealed to the public no matter what it is. And so I really think that a lot of people are more connected to the human side of things, to the lower level human side of things right now, that a lot of people are allowing themselves to fall in consciousness into more separation. And so we know that is the dead end street. Separation is not what we need. We need a coming together, because the truth of it is, if we could just get people on both sides to work together, we could find a solution. We could do something that would be for the highest good for everyone. But for whatever reason, people aren't able to see that right now. And I think that in their blindness and it has devolved into this, to this just total chaos, it seems, in a lot of people's understanding.
Well, it seems like there's a, excuse me again, a push by those who would like to remain in that to really accentuate all that's going wrong, which tends to kind of snowball that a little bit more.
Right.
I mean, if we're sitting there and all the stories we see are these great things and kindness, and which we are seeing a whole lot of those right now, more and more and more every day.
Yeah.
But it seems like if we could kind of get to that point where we see even more of those, where that's the majority of what we see as a population, and I mean global, that's where we would tend to focus more, and it seems like it would subside a little bit, because then you see an act like Brussels and everybody goes, oh, and they get scared, and now their whole being just went, oh, so they didn't. You actually help make the problem worse by doing that. So we're bombarded by it 24/7. I mean, you can do your best, but you're going to see that stuff. How do we shift out of that, even when it's in our face?
I think that we have to do it individually and collectively as communities. We have to opt out and not buy into the story, not buy into the negative drama, not buy into that lower level vibration that is taking people down, because the further down you go, the harder it's going to be. And so, people want to have an enemy to fight. It's like, we cannot bomb the terrorists into oblivion, because that only makes them mad, and they keep coming back because their way of life is threatened because of the technology today and the changes in the culture. Countries that are more backward are not able to keep up, and so because of that, they're fighting against it. And so America's a good target, and of course our politicians love to play the game where they jump in and fight back, and there's so much sensationalism around the idea of terrorism. It's the 24-hour constant negative news, it's constantly bombarding us, drip, drip, drip.
Yeah, because terrorism is an unwinnable war. It's an unending war, because there's not a set enemy, there's no set rules, nothing like that. You can't win it because it's philosophy.
Yes.
Ideology.
It's an ideology, and it's kind of brilliant if that's what you're trying to accomplish, because you don't ever have to finish.
It is a conspiracy. There is a conspiracy to this, and that is, it is an ego conspiracy. The ego, everything that the ego does is based in fear. And so the ego is, it's its last desperate, measure to try to keep the world as it is. But in order for us to change the world, we have to change ourselves. And so the ego is losing so much ground, and so much light is starting to come forward. So many people are wanting to meditate now. They're wanting to change their lives. They're wanting to understand how the mechanics of that. They want to understand, the science of it. They want to understand the behaviors and how to do that. And so all of the revelations are coming out, but those that are still acting out of fear are not on the train yet, And so some people will never get on the train because for whatever reason, that is what their soul has come to experience. So I think that there is this just allowing the world to be as it is, and then opting out of all of the fear mongering and the fearful stuff, and keep your own soul together, your own mind together, and keep your peace. I think that's the most important thing we can do right now.
Well, that's a good place to transition here, because can you give us some advice on how to look at facts in front of you and still remain in truth and still focus on truth, even though what you're seeing is facts?
A lot of it is reminding yourself on a continual basis that those facts are fluid and that they do change. I know for me, in situations like terrorists, I know one real good example is when the young man went into the theater in Colorado and shot up the theater during the Batman filming or whatever it was. There was so much outcry about what's wrong with this man and da-da-da-da-da-da. And, my heart just went to what was lacking for this young man. So I think it's when you have that sense of, yes, we all are one. We all are connected on a greater plane than this physical, and that what one experiences, I'm tapped into. So how can I be more aware when I'm around other folks, perhaps to what is missing? Is there a cry that I'm not hearing? Because when that Colorado incident happened, I just wept inside for the young man that was in such pain that he would do that. And I think it's the same way with the Brussels thing, It is an ideology, but what is the pain in the individual that drives them to that ideology? And so, back to I know your question is about how do you look at the facts. Maybe touching that human place of knowing that we're dealing with humanity. We're dealing with people who want the same things that we want. They want to go to bed at night feeling loved, feeling secure, fed, a roof over their heads. We all basically want the same things. We're just going about it in different ways to get it. And I made a comment, a couple weeks ago in service about people are getting all up in arms about the political silly season right now. What's going on at the rallies and the protesters and the this and that and the other. And well, it's awfully hard to look at people and see the good in them when this kind of thing is going on. But if you can look at those people and realize that what's going on is they're hurting. They're hurting. They're not going to bed fed at night. They're not feeling like they're getting their piece of the pie. They're living in a sense of scarcity, not being heard. Yeah. And so if you can get beyond just it's almost like 2-year-olds throwing temper tantrums. If you can get beyond the tantrum and see what it is that the kid really wants. So, when it comes to dealing with the facts, I think maybe look further than what the facts are presenting you, because the facts are a symptom of something.
Yeah,
What do you think?
I agree. I think, we have to have the revelation come to us that there's more going on than what we can see out here. And what we think it's about, it's not really what it's about, And our police force, are wonderful people for the most part who just want to, they're like our modern day warriors, and they put on the suit and they wear the badge and they come from a place of, that they want to help society, and it's not just about a paycheck for many of them. It's really a calling. And so I think we need to honor that, and we need to honor those who are in war and the soldiers and so forth and so on. But I think we need to also see the whole picture. We need to see why is there violence in the world? What is the real root cause? And when we can get to the root cause, then we can start to do something about it. And as you were saying, and I think it's a spiritual problem.
Mm-hmm.
It's a spiritual problem.
Well, I did find that when these events happen, some unbelievably good things come out of it in that people come together. This
Right.
community, I've never seen them pouring out for
yeah.
anyone like that officer, which is
Right.
really interesting because
Yeah.
it's almost like it's grown from, like the community's grown up a little bit,
Yeah.
And when any of these terrorist attack happens, people really come together.
That's true.
But I do want to ask, so how would you respond to the people who lost loved ones? Let's say the family of this officer or the Brussels people. How do you respond to them when, it's hard to sit there and say there's good in this somewhere to somebody like that.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
How would you talk to them?
Yeah.
How would you try to make them feel better about it?
I think that you have to just sit with people when they're in pain, and you listen and you comfort, and if you've never been through that, then you don't know what that's like, And so there is the mourning, which is the grieving, which is going to be there, and they're not going to have this person in their life, for forever, until this life is over. So that's one thing, we have to be able to do that. But on the other side of things, we realize that no one really dies. And I have the personal belief that nobody has ever died in the thousands of years that we've been here. We just transition from this world to the next world. And really that's all that happens. I believe at the soul level, everybody is just fine. Everybody is fine at the soul level. It's not the soul that's the problem. It's the ego, it's the misunderstanding. It's because we're in these bodies and we see ourselves as separate, and it causes us to see each other as enemies rather than brothers and sisters, And so I think that, we need to pray, for these folks and to extend kindness and love and caring and that kind of thing. But on the other level, the officer, the people who were killed in Brussels, they're all with God. They are in spirit. And so that's not a bad place to be. It's a wonderful, wonderful thing. And they are receiving the healing and the help that they need. And when you know that, and when you really know that, then that can be very helpful to a person.
Well, it's interesting, I think. Oh, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, and in the interim, before you can get to the place where you can really get through all the feelings and know that, because
Right.
sometimes it's not immediate,
Mm-hmm.
then I think you just have to be with people when they're grieving. You just have to be present with them. And,
Right.
Grief looks different for different people, and they need to feel what they're feeling. Not stuff it, not hold it back. Feel what they're feeling and be
Yeah.
there for them and with them. And at some point when that begins to ease, then they can have a deeper awakening about it.
Yeah, I'm going to end on this because I think it might be an interesting idea to play with here. What do you think, soul to soul, the officer and the gang member might say to each other when they meet?
Yeah, I think it's really hard to know for sure. I don't think any of us really know. But, in the Bible it says that we all come from God and that we will all return back to God. And so we come from unconditional love, we'll return to unconditional love. So I think on the other side, when we don't have these bodies and the egos are not so caught up in the negative, that there will be a time where there will be healing and forgiveness, and there will we'll all be able to work through this. And I'm sure that there will be a conversation at some point between these two souls. And just like a lot of souls, we'll have discussions. But I believe in a healing. I believe that the idea of heaven, is a place where things can be worked out, and I think that things will be worked out, and that there will be reconciliation for everybody at some point in time when the soul is ready. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. Would come from a different place.
I only have an opinion about it as I stand today. You ask me again in 6 months and it may be different.
Understood.
But I kind of have this feeling that perhaps these two souls come together on the other side, and that's where they experience what we call, the judgment day, where they sit down with one another and say, oh, you played that part for me very well, and the other one says, I played that part for you very well, and there's a healing that takes place, on the soul level between the victim and perpetrator, or however you want to term that. And I just...
You see it that way?
I see it that way right now.
Sure.
I don't know.
Well, I think...
I think it's a nice way to look at it, to think about it too.
Yeah, because, at some point, we're all going to stop the drama, and we're all going to be on the other side, and we're going to have an after party. The curtains will close on this, and then we'll have an after party, and we'll say, wow, you played the victim, you played the perpetrator, you played this, you played that. And I think that it will be very interesting at that point.
Yeah. And I think maybe some of how long you stay in that too depends upon how much pain you're in when you exit, this life. Obviously, a young man involved in a gang has got some serious pain going on. So maybe that experience lasts longer.
It's not instantly fixed.
On the other side.
I think it's a process, just like it is here in this world.
Healing.
Yeah.
A time of healing and restoration.
Yeah, absolutely.
Going back into the spirit of divine love.
Yeah.
Well, thanks guys for being with us today, and thank you for watching. We'll see you next time.
Yeah.